In 1987, Carlina White, just 19 days old at the time, was snatched from this hospital.
Oh, she's all right. Whoever got her home, she's taking good care of my baby.
It is a 1 in a million kind of thing that happens. This is the longest stranger abduction case that we are aware of that's ever been resolved.
There was a baby in New York City that was kidnapped from a New York hospital. A $10,000 reward was offered for the safe return by the parents Joy White and Carl Tyson.
In 1987, Joy in anticipation filled the home of Joy White and Carl Tyson in Harlem as they welcomed baby Carlina. Yet 19 days later, a hospital visit turned into a nightmare when baby Carlina was mysteriously abducted. The truth remained elusive for almost 2 decades until an unexpected unraveling would finally bring closure to the haunting mystery. It was 1987. Carl was 22, driving a truck and working nights in a parking garage. Joy was 16 and still in high school. They had grown up in Harlem housing projects across town from one another and were together a year when Joy called Carl at work one day saying she felt sick. The pregnancy was not planned, but the couple stayed together. Carlina White was born at Harlem Hospital on the afternoon of July 15, 1987, a healthy 8 pounds. Joy and her mother took care of the baby at her place. Carl stopped by at night after work, but on August 4, 19 days after Carlina's birth, she developed a high fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius, prompting her parents to rush her to the hospital. Doctors discovered that Carlina had an infection from swallowing fluid during her birth and placed her on antibiotics to combat the infection. Concerned about their daughter's condition, Joy decided to stay at the hospital with the baby, but needed to retrieve some things from home. Tyson dropped Joy off at her house and returned home to get some sleep. At about 6 a.m., in the midst of his rest, the phone rang with the police on the line, informing him that his daughter was missing, accompanied by the scream of his girlfriend in the background. Between 2:30 and 3:55 a.m., a person removed the IV from the baby White and abducted her from the hospital. Unfortunately, the hospital's surveillance system was not operational at the time of the abduction. Carl later recalled encountering a woman in a nurse uniform who provided direction upon their arrival. He saw her again while searching for a phone to update Carolina's grandparent on her condition. Joy remembered a bizarre comment the nurse made during the admission. "The baby don't cry for you, you cry for the baby." In hindsight, she believed this was an attempt to distract her. Subsequently, it was revealed that a woman posing as a nurse had been seen at the hospital for several months, deceiving even the other nurses. The imposter was the same person who had given Tyson direction earlier. A security guard noted someone matching her description, leaving the hospital around 3:30 a.m. Although she didn't have a baby with her, there was suspicion that the missing infant might have been concealed in her smock. A comprehensive police investigation followed, initially leading to a suspect, a 31-year-old woman named Lucy Brockington. She was wanted for car theft and fit a relevant description. Detectives tracked her down and questioned her and decided she had an alibi. The case soon reached a dead end, and the kidnapping of Carlina White became a cold case until what happened almost 2 decades later. The mysterious nurse from the hospital was Agatha Petway of Bridgeport, Connecticut. However, how that was revealed will be discussed later. Unfortunately, no information is available about Anne, other than some sources suggesting that she had an abusive upbringing. Her mother often beaten her with belts and extension cords, and that she had been in trouble with the law several times as a teen on charges of larceny, theft, and forgery. But police who knew her said she wasn't a hellraiser. As an adult, she struggled with a drug addiction and suffered multiple miscarriages, which suggests that the motive for what she did is the desire for a child. With the 3 weeks in the hospital, she spent posing as a nurse, adding that she didn't have a specific victim in mind. In 1987, Petway told her friends she was pregnant, and friends later said Petway left town for a while before returning with a child. Friends and family assumed she'd gone elsewhere to give birth to the baby, presumed to be the daughter of her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Robert Nance. Carlina White had a relatively normal life and grew up believing her name was Nigella Nance. She spent her childhood just 45 miles from where her parents had lived. Carolina attended Thomas Hooker School and graduated from Warren Harding High School in Bridgeport, and Carolina later moved to Atlanta, Georgia. During her teens, Carolina grew up suspicious that Anne was not her biological mother because of her inability to provide a birth certificate, and sometimes wondered if Anne was her real mother because her skin was much lighter than Anne's, and though relatives often called her Little Anne, she didn't see any physical resemblance at all.
Nedra Nance, which is the former name of the girl, now known as Carlina White by DNA identification, was very suspicious of who she was and what family raised her. She wasn't sure exactly why she belonged to that family. There was things like there wasn't physical similarities and stuff like that. Then there was no paperwork to follow her, such as a birth certificate or a social security card. So in her late teens, she became suspicious of who she was.
Because why wouldn't you be in Connecticut having your baby? When you was even coming from Connecticut, like no one's around you. You're not asking, you're not asking your sisters, like, come with me to the hospital, I'm about to have my baby. Or, is no one around you while you have this baby. So, where did you get me from?
Sometimes in 2005, Carolina became pregnant, and to secure medical assistance from the state, she had to provide her original birth certificate. Carolina asked Anne for the document, but she couldn't provide it. After Carolina pressed her about it for several days, Anne finally gave her the birth certificate. But when Carolina tried to submit it, officials said it was a forgery. Later that evening, Carolina confronted Anne, who broke down and confessed that she was not her biological mother. She claimed that Carolina was abandoned by her mother at birth. Anne kept repeating, "She left you and never came back." For the next couple of years, Carolina kept pressing Anne for more details about her birth mother, but Anne claimed she couldn't remember anything. At that point, 23-year-old Carolina started scouring the internet for clues as to her true identity. At first, Carolina searched for kidnapping that had occurred near Bridgeport, Connecticut. It wasn't until 2010 that she visited the NCMEC website, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and expanded her search outside of her home state. There, she found a photo of a baby who had been kidnapped in 1987 and looked just like her own daughter, Samani. The infant even had the same birthmark as Carolina.
I just started typing in Yahoo and Google, like different articles, like anything that pulled up in 1987, which any child missing. And the baby picture just struck me because looking at it looked like my daughter.
The Connecticut Post reported that Anne's sister, Cassandra Johnson, helped Carolina reach out to NCMEC in December 2010 through a phone call. The center quickly contacted Joy White and Carl Tyson to inform them their long-lost daughter was found. In January 2011, a DNA profiling confirmed that she was the missing Carlina White.
My sister Joy called me, and that thing made me so happy. And she was like, "Lisa, guess what? They said they may have found Carlina." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" She said, "Yes." She said, "I'm gonna send you these pictures of Carlina." And I said, "Send them to me." And when she sent them to me, she said, "Lisa," she said, "that is mini me." She said, "That is me." She said, I know that's my daughter."
After the confirmation that Nigella was really Carolina White, Federal Bureau of Investigation began a search for Anne Petway. The statute of limitation for the state kidnapping law had expired in New York, but there is no statute of limitation for the federal law on kidnapping. An arrest warrant for Anne Petway was issued by the North Carolina Department of Correction on January 21, 2011 for violating her probation from a conviction for attempted embezzlement. Carolina White stated, "I just hope that the officials be able to get her in their hands so we can just hear her side of the story now."
I just hope that the officials be able to get her in their hands so we can just hear her side of the story now.
On the morning of January 23, 2011, Petway turned herself in to the FBI office at Bridgeport. She had driven from North Carolina to Connecticut to arrange care for her biological son. Petway spent 9 months in a federal detention center in Manhattan, during which she told federal investigators that she kidnapped White After enduring several miscarriages because of the stress over whether she would ever be able to be a parent, Petway did not enter a plea at her arraignment at the U.S. District Court for Southern New York in Manhattan, where she faced between 20 years and life in prison for kidnapping. On February 10, 2012, Petway pleaded guilty to a federal kidnapping charge. As a part of a plea bargain, prosecutors agreed to recommend to the judge a prison sentence of 10 to 12 and a half years. On July 30, 2012, Judge P. Kevin Castile sentenced Petway, who was then 50 years old, to 12 years in prison.
Ann Petway, who posed as a nurse at a Harlem hospital in 1987 and stole a baby girl from an unsuspecting mother, was sentenced to 12 years in prison.
Her lawyers had asked for leniency and argued that she was motivated not by greed or desire to do harm, but by the desperate desire for a child, combined with depression and grief over her failed pregnancies and significant mental illness.
Police say that Ann Petway confessed to the 1987 abduction of Carlina White, who was just 19 days old at the time. Petway reportedly told investigators she did it because she had trouble having children of her own.
However, the judge said she was selfish and inflicted a parent's worst nightmare. Carlina White's father said he thought the sentence was too lenient and that Petway should have received the amount of time as she'd kept his daughter 23 years. During the hearing, Petway apologized, saying, "I would like to apologize to the family. It may be rejected, but I am deeply sorry for what I've done. If they don't accept it, it's understandable. I am here to right my wrong." Petway served her sentence in the Federal Correctional Institution, Ellisville in Alabama, until she was released on April 14, 2021.
Petway's attorney also spoke to reporters.
She just wanted to have an opportunity to say how deeply sorry she really is, and I hope the White family accepted it because it was heartfelt.
For weeks before the DNA test proved that Carl and Joy were her parents, Carlina was in constant contact with her birth parents, but she sometimes struggled to form a relationship with them. She recalled, "The mom had that mother instinct. The dad is like I was talking to a stranger." Nevertheless, the family continued to try to build a relationship, and Carlina flew to New York to meet them for the first time. Her mother picked her up at the airport, and she was welcomed by her extended family with open arms. After a while of the DNA test results, Carolina's attorney advised her to inquire about the cash settlement from the hospital. Joy White and Carl Tyson confirmed that a significant portion of the money had been spent in years leading up to the reunion. The remaining funds were accessible only if Carolina had been located before turning 21. In 1988, a year after Carolina went missing, Carl and Joy had sued the city, which ran Harlem Hospital, for $100 million. In 1992, they reached a settlement of $750,000. Each parent's share was eventually reduced to $162,643. Carl and Joy agreed to put half of each of their shares, to a total of roughly $162,000, in a trust fund for Carolina, should she return before her 21st birthday. When the trust was liquidated in 2008, Carl and Joy each collected what they put in. Joy told Today, "I have 2 other kids, and I had to take care of myself, and I had to live." And Carl said some parents probably wouldn't put any money away, and he added that he lost much of the money in a divorce. "Me and Joy, we did 21 years. Joy White later acknowledged that a dispute had arisen over the issue of the money.
There will be a lot of anxiety, there will be a lot of depression, because in some ways now she has to reintegrate into a normal life after coming from such a traumatic situation.
By July 2011, Carlina became estranged from her biological parents. However, a few months later, she individually reconnected with both of them, stating that the issue over the settlement funds was just a misunderstanding. Despite her legal name being Carlina White appearing on official documents, she continued to use the name Nettie in public, a name she gave herself rather than the one bestowed by either her biological or adoptive parents. In 2014, Carlina White spoke at Crimes Against Children Conference, a prominent national training event for law enforcement professionals combating child victimization. As of 2014, she maintained a relationship with her biological parents. Carolina's journey exemplified the emotional complexities often present in abduction cases, illustrating the challenges of rebuilding family bonds.